Incorta, and thank you to the eCapital team for hosting out the session and for getting everybody to show up. We are recording today's session, so if you want to go back to it, or you've got people in your organization that you think would benefit from seeing or taking a look at the content, we'll make sure you get a recording of this as well. In addition, we are running a series of these webcasts during the month of February. This will be the first one, and as I mentioned earlier, Analytics Unleashed. It's really focused on how Incorta can help the business audience. Next week, and then again later in the month, we're going to do one that's more focused on the IT and technical side, and we'll also do one more that is focused, again, on more the business audience. Now, that said, if you have technical questions today, please ask them. If you've got more process or business-oriented questions today, again, please ask them. We just sort of tailor the content towards one audience a little bit, but that doesn't mean I'm unable. In fact, I'm more than happy to segue down any of those other paths as necessary. So I'm going to start today's session not with slides. I'm actually going to start today's session with a little bit of a demonstration. And we'll come back, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the thing that got me excited to, and really the thing that got me to come on board to Incorta. Now, Incorta is an analytics platform. We talk about no ETL, no flattening, BI reimagined, or analytics reimagined. What we are really talking about is an end-to-end analytics platform that allows you to pull data, that allows you to enrich that data for the users, for the business community. The business community can do this themselves in a lot of ways, and allows you to perform direct analytics on it. And the concept I want to highlight up front here is the concept, I call it top line to transaction, but really full data fidelity. And it's one that's near and dear to my heart, as I was my last 6 years as a consultant. And I won't bore you with my background, but I've been about 20 years in the analytics space. A lot of that time as a field consultant and strategic architect. And it's something I had to try to build over and over and over again for clients over the years. So I'm going to start with a demonstration of that. Then I'll talk about the Incorta platform, the process by which we work in Incorta, and then I'm going to actually show you from the ground up how I built it. And we'll get that all done here in the next 45 to 50 minutes, I promise. We'll move quick, but not too quick. So again, if there are questions along the way, let me know. So I'm going to log into the Incorta interface, and I'm going to log with the proper password here, so give me a moment. Here we go. Log into the Incorta interface, and I will talk about this interface in greater detail later. I'm logged in as an administrator, so I see everything from content on the way through to security. But what I really wanted to illustrate, and from an end goal to me, is this concept. The dashboard I'm going to show you here is going to look like a dashboard you may see at any company, one you may have internally. It's not the fact that I've got KPIs on the top that are important. It's not the fact that I'm generating a line chart that shows me revenue by product category and temperature that's important. It's not even the fact that I've got a pivot table here that's got 5,000 or 10,000 cells in it. It's got products by category, so bike stands, bike racks and accessories, and different bike types or states here in the rows. The thing I want to highlight is the nature of data. So, as I said, you all internally, you may have Tableau, you may have MicroStrategy, you might have Excel dashboards, doesn't matter. And you can build views that look like this. I can show you my total KPIs of $8.2 billion in revenue and $7.5 billion and $720 million in profit. I can show you my breakdown in a line chart. I can show you my category and subcategory. All that data is good, and it's correct, but it's not your real data. And what I mean by it's not your real data, that if I look at my data set, there's nothing in my data set that says there's $8.2 billion of total revenue. There's nothing in my data set that says there is, since ECAP is sponsoring the webinar here, let's just look at Minnesota. That's where they're located. There's nothing that says there are $41,181,000 in revenue of bike stands in Minnesota. That's all an aggregation, abstraction. It's correct, but that's not your real numbers. Your real numbers in this case are the 9 million sales transactions that are sitting down here, and they're all on that table, every one of them. I can scroll through them 1,000 at a time. That's what these arrows do here on the bottom. It's $8.2 billion in revenue. This is 64-degree average temperature where I get things sold. There's 19,000 distinct customer IDs. But they're all 9 million are there. But the thing I want to get at when I talk about top line to transaction and really the nature of this webcast about moving beyond the concepts of visualizations and spreadsheets is that what we're really trying to do from an analysis perspective is get to the details, get to the root cause. What's driving that? If I want to see what's driving that in Incorta, I click on the number. And out of those 9 million transactions, 259 rows that add up to 41,181, and it never misses. It never misses, and keep this in the back of your mind because Incorta handles all your data at full fidelity. And I'll explain what that means. And that's whether I click or whether I decide I want to start searching in here. Now I'm going to look for bike helmets. Start typing that. I got product names of that helmet. I've got subcategories. I've got categories, country regions, anything with an HEL. I want helmets in Minnesota. And I might even want to look at one type of helmet. Let's look at the red one. And now down to 6,241 transactions that tie to my $414,000 in revenue. Here's my breakdown, and here are my KPIs. That's the thing. That simple process of going from what is an aggregate value down to the details, that's the thing that drove me to join Incorta as a company, because that's complex to build. And I'll explain why I believe that's the case over the next 40 minutes or so, and I'll show you exactly how I built that from the ground up. And I mean from the ground up, I mean from data acquisition all the way through building out a very quick dashboard so you can understand the process. So let's go back to the slides, and I promise I'll pause for questions in a moment. Incorta talks about itself in really these terms. No flattening, no ETL, BI imagined or analytics reimagined, whichever term you want to use. And I think really one's a subset of the other. But it's about, as we mentioned, you're feeding that data curiosity. You know, when I was a consultant, when I was in industry, I get questions, or we'd ask questions like this all the time. A simple thing. And to the businesses, it's a simple question. I want to overlay my sales data with production forecasts. I need that data tomorrow because I've got a perishable decision to make. And what I mean by a perishable decision is this. We're asked all the time to make a call on something, and you've got to make that decision in 48 hours or 72 hours. If you need that data tomorrow, but IT tells you this is not IT's fault. In fact, I'm going to use, we use Kevin as our IT lead today. It's not IT's fault. Kevin has got a difficult job to go through, and I'll explain why that is. But Kevin tells you it's 4 to 6 weeks. You're going to have to make that decision in 72 hours regardless. It's perishable. You can either make it with all the data or some of the data. And most of the time, we end up making those decisions with only a small sliver of really the data we need to support it. And really, it can get worse. You know, about 6 months ago, I was having a conversation with Oracle's ex-CFO, Jeff Epstein. And we were talking about, somebody else was in the conversation with us, and they asked us really what was the dirty little secret that we want somebody to know about in the analytics space. And I came up with an answer I thought was good, but Jeff came up with one that's significantly better. Because we so often in industry, we get to a point where we've asked the question 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. And most of the time we get told no, or it's going to take 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or longer to get the information. And you can't wait. We've trained ourselves to start making decisions without all the information. But more importantly, in many cases, we've trained ourselves to stop asking the hard questions. You know, and really what Jeff was getting at is the thing that would keep him up at night as a modern CFO, as a modern executive, as a modern business leader, is the question your teams aren't asking because they quit. They quit trying to. And that, I thought, was somewhat profound because it's true. If you're not asking the hard questions, you're only asking the easy ones because those are the ones we've trained you to get to that information quickly. What are you leaving on the table from an operation efficiency perspective? What are you leaving on the table for revenue? And what bad decisions are you making? And really, I think of it this way. This is what I call analysis frustration. Okay? What I have seen most business users go through over the years, you know, you've got your standard reports and dashboards, but you've got a level of frustration because the data you want, go back to that perishable decision concept, the data you want is not necessarily there. And so you ask, and we'll keep using Kevin as an example, you call Kevin. You've known Kevin for a long time. Kevin works down in IT and says, hey, Kevin, can you get me this information? That's step 2 in the process. Kevin looks at it and says, okay, I think I can get you this information. I've got to go out to all these systems. Now, you don't know that. It's not your problem as a business lead. You just know you have a decision to make and need information. Kevin goes out and starts working through his databases, looking at the different systems, trying to find the information out there. A number of days later, again, you've got 72 hours, for example, to make a decision. You've gone to Steve, who's also on IT, and you've known Steve even longer. You guys play basketball on the weekend. If you talk Stephen to give you a couple million records out of one of the systems, you download that. You build an access database out of it, or you build an Excel file, and you start trying to churn through and do your analysis. Your goal is to get information. Kevin did nothing wrong. Kevin's trying to find that information for you. You shortcut it because you have a need. It's a perishable one. Finally, Kevin gets you that information. It's pushed to your dashboard, and then 2 days later, you have another question, and you got to walk that process again. That's what slows you down. It's not that IT is bad. It's a legacy process that the technologies and the way that legacy technologies have forced us to implement have really restricted the ability to access data and the ability for you to access and answer those or ask those hard questions. I mean, here's a little more formal version of that same architecture. And the way I tend to think about this, and again, if you're not familiar with all the steps, I'll explain them in simple terms here. This is what IT goes through every time you ask them a question. And let's just say today, for sake of discussion, for sake of easy numbers, that there are only 1,000 questions you could answer around your business. I know there are probably 100 million of them. Let's just say today there's 1,000. And all 1,000 of those questions are back on those source transactions, whether that's one system or multiple systems, and generally it's the latter, multiple systems. To make it simple, to make it perform, to get you that access, that data is taken out of that system, ETL, extract, transform, and load. We simplify it. We have to presuppose some of those questions. We have to make it easier for the system to churn through and answer them. So you go from I can answer all 1,000 questions back here in the source data. By the time I go to the warehouse, maybe I'm down to 100 questions. And then you've got your planning budgeting systems. I'm an old cube guy, so I love cubes. But you've also got, I need an AR data mart because I need specific AR information because I got to check how my cash flow is going. Well, okay. Now I need to build a data mart. I go from 100 questions down to 50 questions. And then finally I hand that to the users. And then the users ask questions 1 through 50. They're great. They're right here in the data mart. They go to ask question 51. They're back here at the warehouse. And more ETL and more time. They ask question 101. They're back at the source transactions. So IT has to ETL to the data warehouse, ETL to the data mart, back into the BI environment. We like to term it the analytic supply chain. And it's long and it's frustrating. But it's not, again, this is tried and true. I built this when I was a consultant. This is not IT's fault. This is the legacy paradigm that traditional technology is forced on the market. In Incorta, we look at it a different way. I mean, because even after you build that very expensive, very cumbersome model, you get things like this. As I mentioned earlier, you use Excel a lot. These are the 3 largest Excel books I ever ran into a client. Every one of them had that traditional supply chain, had that traditional architecture. But in every use case, the businesses still had to build a 25 meg, a 97 meg, or 127 meg workbook with millions or hundreds of thousands or millions of rows, and sometimes VBA code and lots of formula to try to make those perishable decisions more effectively, to try to ask those harder questions. Our goal, and what Incorta does, is take you from a world that looks like this to a more modern world. You get out of those steps, and you've got an environment where you've got a question, you can ask for that question. If there's a piece of data missing, in days, sometimes hours, not weeks, Kevin can go grab that information, put it right back out there for you. You can consume it either in Excel, you can consume it web-based, you can consume it mobile device-based. And going back to that, when I talk about a hard question, here's a very specific example, and I've had this when I was a consultant. You've got something as simple as an income statement here, right? Everybody's seen these. If you're a public company, you do them on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, put those out there. But I've sat in meetings, whether it's an income statement or whether it's just a KPI and a dashboard, and somebody will do this to me. Why is my cost of sale higher than forecasted? That's a root cause question. And that root cause question needs the real data. It needs the transactions to answer it. I can go down a step, maybe 2 steps of depth, but if I really want to see what are the transactions driving that, that's what I mean by top line to transaction. I've got to get down there. And that's what the users that I worked with for my 20 years always asked me to do. And it's something that comes out of the box with Incorta. And it was, unexpectedly so in some cases. Looking back at my traditional architecture, what Incorta would do is we drop that out. We take all 1,000 questions, again, using simple numbers. We pull all those into Incorta. You can even bring additional data in, and I give you full access to it, all of it. I can simplify it. I promise it won't be confusing when you look at it, and I'll show you that process. But it's a simplified progressive architecture, and it is modern. It is the way that users really want to attack and look at data and work with it. Full fidelity. So I'm going to walk you through a demonstration, as I said. I'm going to do this in 4 steps. I'm going to go from the ground up. I showed you what the end result would look like. What I'm going to show you now is how to start with that. And we're going to pull data in. We're going to connect and ingest data, step 1. I'm going to save that data, hold it in Incorta. I'll enrich it, maybe create a calculation if I want to. Step 2, I will simplify it, make it easy for users to consume. And then finally, I'm going to rebuild a portion of that dashboard so you can see exactly how I did it. So there won't be any mystery. There's some magic here. The magic's in our engine. It shouldn't be in how you have to do analysis. And I'll come back at the end and we'll talk about a couple of customer stories and how they leverage Incorta. So I'm going to pause right there. See if there are any questions right this moment. If not, we're going to go right back over to the Incorta interface. Again, I'll pause right this moment. And I'll tell you what I will do is I'll put this slide out there. And we'll go back and forth between this slide and the demonstration a few times as we go along here. See if I can build it up just a little more perfect. Now I can go back and forth without being in presentation mode. All right, I'll take silence that there are no questions at the present moment. So let me jump out to the Incorta interface. Now I'm showing a few data sources here. Incorta has access potentially to hundreds of different data sources. And the really simple way we first do things inside of the platform is I'm just going to connect out to one of those data sources. In this case, a point of sale system. And I'm going to bring that data in. Now, if there are questions specifically about how we connect out or what other options we have for creating data sources, happy to walk through that process. But literally all I did was select the source I want to work with. In this case, it's MySQL, put the connection information in, and that's something your admins likely would have to do for you if you're a business user. You may have access to it. And I also have the ability to go out and grab data files. This is just a CSV file, 74 million records. I can upload that. Uploading that is no different than just going out to my PC and saying, you know what I'd like to do is I'd like to take, this data set right here and bring this data. Use a small one here. No, I don't know. I use this one right here. Bring that data up into Incorta, and that's what's happening right now. So if I've got a data set, I'm a user, and I want to just work with it, I can just pull that data in. Now, this particular data set I just pulled in, I happen to know of because I know the data set is a couple million records I just pulled in. So I can now leverage as data in Incorta. But today, I want to rebuild some of that other dashboard for you. So I'm going to start with a more complex data set, that point of sale system, one that's a little more formalized. And I'm simply going to create an area to work with it. And I'll use the wizard to do that. And I use this wizard in production all the time. I've done some production work for Incorta. So we're going to call this point of sale. I'll just call it point of sale. I'm going to go after this point of sale data source. I'm going to select the information I want to bring in. And today, just to make it simple and quick, I'm going to bring all of it in. Now, I don't have to. I could bring in, I don't want addresses maybe. I do want addresses. Choose, I don't want this table, I want that one. Let's just bring it all through today. And I've essentially just created what I like to think about it like you're framing up a house. I have decided that I want this information. Let me put it in graphical format. I'm much more of a graphical person. I have decided that I want to bring this information into Incorta. So I'm framing up a house. I've got the lumber, I've got the empty lot. I decided how many bedrooms I want and bathrooms I want, and where's the study and what size is the kitchen. Big difference, though. Incorta, unlike a house, if a house, 5 years from now, I decide I want to put 2 extra bedrooms on it and a bathroom, well, I got to probably expand the foundation, break the external walls, a lot of work. Incorta, just bring the data in and we'll accommodate. I don't have to think about what's in there already or how do I set it all up. Incorta will ingest this and allow you to work with it. And we have a technology internally called direct data mapping that allows us to do this quickly and to handle data at volume and scale. And from an IT perspective, if there are questions along those lines, towards the end, I can meander down that path to talk about in some detail what the more official architecture and how direct data mapping works. But my goal here to show you is the process right now. So I'm going to load some data in. There's no data sitting here. I'm still in step 1A, right? I've just connected. I'm going to ingest this data. I'm going to load this, all of it, into the platform. Notice that I can do incremental as well. I can do incremental as frequently as every 5 minutes. This would be the same process, by the way, if you're putting a flat file in place. You'd select the file, you tell it to pull it into the Incorta engine. So I'm doing the load right now. And that's what's happening right here. It's gone out, it's pulling all that data into the platform. And it's doing what we call a direct data map. So you also hear Incorta talk about it as a direct data mapping engine. This allows us to understand all potential relationships in the data set. I know how everything relates to everything else at the cell level even. So you can ask any question you want. I want to know what my product reviews are, as an example. Where's my product review? Here are my product reviews. I want to know what my product reviews are on my states. Well, that's a simple business question. It's a complex IT architecture because I got to go from state to address to this table, to this table, to this table, to this table. And that's complex. And Incorta will handle that and allow you to ask that question without having to worry about whether it's complex or simple. So what I have done here, and this is actually done, I have just ingested and mapped just shy of 25 million records and compressed it down to less than a gig of space. And we can do analysis on this right now. I can start doing analysis on this instantly. And we are really loading here, because if I were to look at how long it took to leave the source system, how long it took to come into Incorta, Incorta actually ingested this and mapped it at about 1.2 million records a second. And we have customers that will get up to 1.2 billion transactions an hour and do incremental refreshes as frequently as 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. So the data you're looking at is very, very fresh, if I can use that term. Now, I can, as I said, right now I could come in here, I could click Explore Data, and I can be out in the Incorta interface. So back on my steps, that would be going from connect and ingest out to access. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing it, especially if it is I'm uploading flat file. But of course, just go ahead and do that. And I've got tables, and I've got pivot tables, and I've got charts, I've got data fields, I've got gauges, as you would expect from an analytics front end. That's not what makes us unique. What makes us unique is the ability to very quickly handle complex data and to greatly shorten that analytic supply chain we were talking about earlier, because we have to support the perishable decision. So just an example here. Choose a column chart. And I know this data set really well, and there's a lot of tables in here. I have 32 different tables sitting here, so it's potentially confusing. If I want to look for revenue as an example, revenue is not in this data set. But since I know the data set, I know line total on my sales order detail table, my sales order point of sale, that's my revenue. And I could bring that over here. I could call it revenue, and I could look at that by product category. I can search for anything. I can even preview. So here are my category names, my bikes, my accessories, clothing. And here are dynamic aggregations across that 25 million record set. It didn't pre-cache anything. It's just sitting there. And I can do that by, say, state, province name. Yeah, that'll work. Pull that in here. That's super ugly. Let me just change these around really quick. Simple view. I can use that if I want to. Now, I'm not going to save this. What I'm doing here, I often talk to people, tell them it's ill-advised, meaning that if I give all the users visibility, notice I didn't say access, visibility, into all the data on all these tables, they could potentially get lost. Now, they may not know line totals revenue, as an example. So there really is a way to simplify this. So I have, again, going back to my steps, I staged that data. That data is sitting inside the Incorta platform. Now, I debated when I built this slide whether to call this just stage and then this one enrich and simplify, because really steps 2 and 3 are blended. And honestly, step 3 is optional. Go back to that example I gave you where you have your own Excel workbook. Let's say, or just a CSV. You got a 50 million record CSV you want to do analysis on. You upload it like you saw in the upload. You build your house, just pull the data in. You click Explore Data, you're up and running. You only need those steps. That steps connect, ingest, stage, and step 4, access. But the step 3 in complex data sets, like the one we're looking at for this point of sale system, is intended to make it simpler. There are all kinds of questions I can answer for those transactions. Let's say right now I want to talk about sales data, just sales data. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create an area, a subject area, that is all about sales. Now, this is not a reload of the data. This is simply UI abstraction. If you load your accounts payable data, your accounts receivable data, your HR information, your facilities information into Incorta, and that's a terabyte of data, and it comes from 4 different data sources. Well, similar thing we did for Facebook. Fairly distinct analytic subject areas. So, sure, the finance APAR users would log in, the collection manager logs in, they see those areas that are relevant. They probably don't care anything about the facilities information, but it's all there. It's all in this data set. Let's make it simpler. So I'm going to call this point of sale, sales analysis, and I'm just going to literally create a subject area for it. I like calling this a subject area because I'm going to do sales analysis. I know I want to do sales analysis out of this point of sale system, and I know that my line total, as an example, is my revenue. I bring that over, and instead of leaving the label revenue, I make it simple. Let the user see revenue here. Now I can bring calculations in here if I want to. I want to do revenue. I want to do revenue by, well, who's buying, so my customer information. And so let's make that simple. I want to pull my customer IDs and my customer types. I want to pull my product information. What are they buying from me? Pull my product information. My product names. Maybe my product category. I got a category name here. Just a little bit of roll-up aggregations here. Category and subcategory. And maybe when they're buying it from me, the order date. Spell that right. So I get sales order date and purchase order. I want sales orders. I'm doing sales analysis. I'll call this sales order date maybe. Maybe I want both of them. For today, make it simple and easy. Do it this way. Sales order date. Well, how about my month? I want my month name and maybe my month numbers. I got to sort it. So in the order I drag these in is the order in which the users will see them. And I can change the order just by dragging them around here. I got month name. I got month number. I've got maybe year. Oh, finally, let's go on the zip code, where I'm selling things. Let's go with my state, because I never know. So if I've lived in a zip code, where that is, postal code, state/province name. Maybe last one here, I'll choose country. Country, region name. Point is, all I'm doing here is choosing those columns that make sense. I am not presupposing questions. I'm not minimizing the amount of data. I'm giving you a view into the world. Think of it this way. If you were today, if for somebody were looking in your house, Thanksgiving dinner, somebody looks in the window of your house, depending on the window they look in, they're going to see, say there are 10 people in your house, maybe they see all 10 people. Your big bay window up front, your sliding glass door. They look in the side window in the kitchen. They see your mom and dad who are prepping the meal. They're all in there. They didn't change what was in the house. It's just a different view into the world. That's all I'm doing here. I'm not changing the fidelity. I'm just telling you which window that you should look through giving you a job. And click done. That is this concept right here of enrich and simplify. Now, what I mean by enrich, I just brought revenue, but let's say I want to look at cost. Let's say I want to calculate profit. Let's say I want to do profit as a percent of sales. I can write those calculations on Incorta. Very simple. So it's very simple, very similar to doing it in Excel. You got if statements, you got case statements, different webcasts for that. Get into the details of calculations. But it's got a full calculation engine sitting there. Or maybe I want to concatenate my product ID and the description together because that's how my users like to see it. Absolutely, I can do that in Incorta. I can enrich that data. But now that I've simplified it, giving you that window into the living room, as it were, now I'm just going to access it. I'm going to go explore data now. Right? This is the same data set. If I look at revenue by category, I get the same breakdown. If I put state in, I'm going to get the same ugliness I got before. I can swap it around to make it simple again. There's my breakdown by category and state. So there's revenue. By state, revenue, spelled right. And if I want to change it to a line chart, change to a line chart. There's my breakdown of revenue by category and state. I can save that. That's in my dashboard. I want to do KPI. I can do a KPI tile, but let me just skip ahead to a couple things. Here's my pivot table. I'm going to look at revenue. I want to look at revenue, let's say, by category and subcategory. I want to do that also by state. Now, I'm an old cube guy. I love pivot tables. Incorta does about 100,000 pivot table calculations a second, very, very fast. But it still is not what makes us unique. What makes us unique is accelerating that overall process. I got revenue here by state and subcategory. Click done. And I'm going to move these side by side on the dashboard. I'm just using the arrow keys on the keyboard. I'll make the pivot table twice the size. Click Save here. I'll do one more insight. We call our visualizations insights. And I'm going to choose the list table. And all this is what's in Incorta. I'm just going to grab everything. I'm going to click this black plus. It's going to pull everything onto the grid. These are my transactions. In that data set, that 25 million record data set, you have 9 million sales transactions, the PO transactions as well and other things. And if I wanted to say, let's tell you what, I've got revenue up here. Let me grab my customer ID and pull that up here just for fun. I'm going to add totals to this. I'm just going to put a total on the bottom of the table. And it's going to total up things that shouldn't, like month numbers. So tell you what, let me go turn those off. This is a very common activity users go through. Hey, something I don't want that. I don't want that totaled. I don't want product ID totaled. Doesn't make any sense. But I tell you what, I'm going to bring product ID over here too. What I'd like, revenue I can total. I got $8.2 billion in revenue. Customer ID, I'd like to see a distinct number of customers. Product ID, I'd like to know a distinct number of products as well that are being sold. So in this data set, as I've got it set up, I've got $8.2 billion in revenue. I've got 19,119 distinct customer IDs and 226 distinct products, and there are 9 million transactions. I click done. That's your data. That's your real data. That's the truth in your numbers. There's nothing wrong with the abstractions. We live and die by them. We need them. Right? I got to understand the breakdown by category and subcategory. But the value is in being able to go from here Say, what's driving that 467,000? Click on it, and it's 937 rows that drive it. And I didn't have to do anything special. That's just the way the engine operates. That's one of the things that makes us very, very unique. I want to download that now? Sure. I want to grab a CSV or an Excel file. I download that. For the IT folks on the phone, if you're on there, or even business people. By the way, that's audited. I have a dashboard built into Incorta that says Mike Nader just downloaded on this dashboard this insight with these filters. And that got recorded. So if it's HR information, as an example, it's collection information, as an example, you can track who's doing what. You can also turn off the download. But the fact is, I can tell you who's doing what with the data you got, and I can keep all that data at full fidelity. I'll go ahead and clear those filters out of there and bring it all back. So that's how I built that. No, it didn't take any longer than you saw right here. I did put one more insight type on the top earlier with the KPI tiles. But what we're really talking about in Incorta is the really simplified process. And it's really going from what was a long, onerous analytic supply chain that could never support that perishable decision to a modern, simplified one that can. Now, I'm going to go back in the presentation mode for just a moment here. And I like this as a good example of not only a client success, but really illustrating the concept of what users can do when they can make the perishable decision the right way. So about a year and a half ago, and Shutterfly has spoken publicly about it, so I'm not betraying anybody's trust here. About a year and a half ago, we did an implementation at Shutterfly, and their goal was to simplify their out-of-stock issues. Now, Shutterfly, many of you are probably familiar with them, but if you're not, they do photo calendars and mugs and shirts, and they are a retailer, but also a manufacturer. And during the Q4, calendar Q4 holiday season, they hire about 4,000 temporary workers, and those workers help them deal with the glut of orders that come in. Now, their biggest issue in the supply chain team was out of stock, and they had asked IT to help them fix it. And IT told them that they have a long list of priorities. They get that it's important, they need to fix it. So go out and find another way to do this. Otherwise, you're about 12 months out. We can't help you this year. Again, not IT's fault. We use Kevin as an example again. Kevin's got a laundry list of tickets. He's got all kinds of things trying to do, and he's been forced into an analytic supply chain that is cumbersome and takes an enormous amount of time with legacy technology. So we implemented in 6 weeks, start to finish, for Shutterfly, just before Q4 started. In 2016, they had 75 out-of-stock activities. So let's talk about what an out-of-stock activity happens. They have to idle their manufacturing line, 4,000 temporary workers, which they're, by the way, still paying. They have to, worst case, now outsource that to a subcontractor, to do the printing maybe. I can buy a photo calendar at Walgreens, CVS, at any place. Shutterfly has to be materially better on customer service, materially better on product, and they are, but also have to be very good on price. So if I have to outsource it, my margin's gone. All I'm doing is keeping the customer happy. In 2017, after they implemented Incorta, they went down to 7 out of stocks. Their estimate, not mine, was less than 1 quarter to recoup all costs for services and software, for the implementation and for a 3-year subscription to Incorta. Now let's talk about the reality of what those numbers mean. Incorta didn't do this. What happened is you had very good supply chain analysts that had perishable decisions they needed to make, and Incorta helped them get the data they needed to have, not in a day and a half, but every 90 minutes. They got the right data at the right time and made the right decisions to materially impact the change in the business. And that's what we're really trying to get at. You shrink the time it takes people to get the data, they'll start asking those hard questions that they have stopped. They'll start asking those questions, they'll sleep better, you'll actually get better business results out of it. Now, one more example, and then I'll open it up to questions, we'll finish up here. Starbucks. Starbucks has spoken publicly for us as well, so an example of a larger organization, but doing something very complex. So we are doing store item level profitability in Starbucks. They set aside a year for this project. They went live from literally day it started to day it went live in 10 weeks with Incorta, and shrinking that analytic supply chain. So they now have at the store manager level, the regional manager level, the VP level, down to those awesome chocolate covered graham crackers that I love, how that exact SKU is trending on a sub-daily basis to see exactly what's going on so they can see trends in their business. 10 weeks start to finish, shrinking that analytic supply chain. So I'm going to pause there. I'm finishing up with the presentation, but if you think about it, this is really what we're getting at. We're going to eliminate the IT backlog. Kevin will be happy with us. Business users will be happy with us. You'll be able to ask those hard questions. You're going to feed that data curiosity. We have the ability to do data science and machine learning and AI. We haven't really got into that longer, more in-depth webcast. Happy to have that conversation with anyone. But really, it's this unfettered data access and maximum ROI, making it simpler. That's the goal. That's what we provide. So with that, I'm going to end the webcast. We're not in the webcast, in my presentation portion of it, and open up to any questions out there.
Hey, Mike, I'm not seeing any questions roll through in our chat or Q&A at this time.
All right. Perfect. Well, again, thank you all for coming today. We'll go ahead and end it a few minutes early. This recording will be available. We will run this webcast again in a couple of weeks. Again, sponsored by eCapital. Next week's webcast will be a little more in-depth on the technical side of the world. We'll end up building a similar demo, but we're going to look at a different architecture and then do a few additional tips and tricks around it. But thank you all for coming today. I appreciate the time. Have a wonderful rest of your week.